Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and I do say welcome back perhaps for the first time to some of you. I've gotten, I think, something like 50 something new subs since yesterday, which is super cool. Love to see it. If you don't subscribe, if you watch these videos at all, drop me a sub, drop me a like. I really appreciate it. I'm, maybe not the only one who does this sort of thing, but not too many people are doing this sort of thing. So if you enjoy it, if you want to see more of it, just click the buttons. It's easy. It makes me feel good, whatnot. Okay. Also leave a comment. We're, of course, probably, if you can't tell from the title, I don't know what I'm going to title it, but if you can't tell, we're going to be going over the matches for the first day, and there are, I guess, 7 of them. So things are a bit different. Only 8 teams. More games each day, played online, all this stuff. But do comment below who you think is going to win each of these matchups. Specifically, I think the hardest ones to call on paper look like Sonics versus SSG and DarkZero versus M80. The rest of them feel maybe clear cut just because all the rest of them involve some of those newly founded teams. So, okay, let's get into it. We're starting with Oxygen versus Beast Coast. So, I feel like these guys play each other early quite a lot. It's one of those classic early matchups, and DarkZero and Mirage, they play each other early a lot as well. And I don't know if this happens a lot, but I think last stage, it was one of their early games, Sonics versus SSG, first week, or was it the very first game? I think it was, right? Because it was Yeti versus Old Team. No longer the case, but, interesting that some of these matchups tend to happen early on quite often. So, yeah, looking at Oxygen versus Beast Coast, we have a pretty solidified roster. Yeah, one change coming out for Oxygen, but it is a player that played on the roster previously, whereas Beast Coast, 5 new players, and, well, we didn't even know what the 5 players were until just last night, even with the leaks, because one of them ended up being incorrect, and it probably was correct, and then they opted for a last-minute change, bringing in Vertical rather than Tristan. So it's going to be Vertical, Hyper, Mr. B, Hat, and Doc, I believe, right? So a lot of players with a lot to prove. They did gain a lot of experience subbing out Tristan for Vertical, so they have the Hyper and Vert, and I guess both of them are trying to sort of dodge the wash allegations, because Vertical hasn't been as hot as he used to be in the past recently, and then Hyper used to be the absolute picture of consistency, but in this most recent stage, he got dropped from DarkZero mid-stage because he just didn't have what it took. He didn't have the motivation, whatever was the case. But they both definitely have the pedigree, and maybe even more weight will be on their shoulders here, not only to get some entries, assuming they are the entry duo, but yeah, based on the roles, that is what it looks like. And then also because the other ones are all rookies or at least inexperienced. Okay, so I think an easy Oxygen pick. Everyone's going to go with them. Beast Coast winning would be a bit of an upset. We'll have to see what happens. M80 versus Parabellum. So a couple of roster changes coming out for M80. I think Spoit still hasn't been announced, so I don't are they about to play with a sub? It seems like Spoit is in Toronto, so maybe he did have visa issues, but he was able to make it to Canada, which is probably within a reasonable ping range. And then we have Parabellum, the Laxing Skies, Fish, Spiker, Spiff combo, who on paper, we'll see if it works out or not. A couple of veterans on the more supportive roles, and then some flashy new players in the aggressive entry roles. Will it pan out? I think it just comes down to how well, specifically Spiker and Fish, how they adapt, because Spiff did sort of prove himself. He didn't have a spectacular SI, I suppose, but his team, Astralis, did make it to top 4, and he had a reasonable rating. And it's not like anybody on that team had a spectacular rating. They were all negative or just barely over 1, but again, they made it to top 4, so Spiff has proven himself in some regard. Let's see how he does within NA. Easy M80 pick, though. Maybe the team will need to adjust with the 2 new pickups, but they're both so good, and their opponents have a lot more adapting to do overall to just a completely new team and environment and whatnot. So yeah, opting for M80 there. DarkZero versus Mirage. So similar sort of case where we have a more established team. I guess this is the case with all 3. These are the 3 brand new teams: Mirage, Beast Coast, and Parabellum. And then we have DarkZero, who just made 1 roster change, and then I guess recently also made another one, bringing on Gaveni, and the very, very recent one I was talking about was Achieved, coming in for Skies now. So we'll see how the roles pan out. I was mentioning this in the previous video. Is Canadian finally going to be on Hard Breach, or are they going to throw in JR or Achieved or something on it? I mean, it'd be insane if it was Pambazoo or Gaveni, but I'm guessing Canadian. We'll see, but I'm sure they have it ironed out. Mirage having a lot more ironing out to do. A similar question of who's going to be playing Breach there. I'm guessing DP Fire, but it could be Yeti, could be one of the other players, could be Kansan. hard to really say, and a lot of skill on that roster, but I think similar to Vertical and Hyper, a lot of those players are sort of going to be battling the washed allegations. Maybe some of them will, and maybe some of them will win, and some of them won't, but probably you're going to need most of them to dodge those allegations if the team wants to be successful. So I'm going to go with DarkZero there. I think a lot of people are doubting DarkZero, think they're getting a bit stale, think they've had some persisting problems, but they've been up to a certain standard. They've been I think they were like top 5 all three stages last year. It was like top 3, top 5, and top 5 not good enough to make the majors, and then they made like top 12 at SI. So not spectacular, but I mean, making the top half of the league plus making top 12 at the World Championship, not too bad. I mean, I don't think there's much reason to doubt DarkZero that hard, but the competition is super stiff, just maybe not against the particular team they're playing on the day. So I'll go with DarkZero. Yeah, pretty easy predictions for the first 3. And now we have Sonics versus SSG, and I feel like people should more so be leaning towards Sonic. I think I looked on the Twitter poll for, I think it was maybe just the official Rainbow Six Esports thing or whatever, and they polled all of them, and none of them were especially close except for this one. And I think Space Station was actually winning. It was like 50-50, but Space Station had like 51 to Sonic's 49 when I clicked on it anyways. I don't know if that's changed, but a bit curious because I do feel like on paper Sonic's really feels like the favorite, because even though SSG has a lot of talent on the roster, they did just make a bunch of changes, because it's basically the old Astralis roster with a bunch of changes. Like they have the same coaching staff, and they have J90 and Forest, and they're basically bringing on Merc, Fultz, and Hot and Cold, even though the org is now Space Station. Basically they took on a lot of the structure of Astralis. So 3 new players. Sonics, even though they didn't do well at SI, they've had time to play with the roster. They have a ton of really good players on that roster. I mean, I'd say it's hard to find a weak link. Obviously, it looks like Gunner right now, but I mean, we've seen what Gunner can do in the past. He put up insane numbers back when he was on Parabellum, and then even in his time on Sonics. I don't think he's had too many like terrible showings. Just maybe he's been outshone. And what are you going to do when you have Citizen, Rexon, and Grixer on your team, and even Geo, who maybe not the flashiest player ever, but former world champion, obviously really really good player. I guess I'll go with Sonics here. I think it's too early to just say, yeah, Space Station is going to come right out of the gate against such an established team. If they were playing against one of these other teams, I'd easily pick Space Station. But against Sonics, and maybe I am overestimating Sonics, maybe I should be more concerned because they got double eliminated by other NA teams at SI to make only top 16, but I haven't lost faith yet, so I'm going to go with Sonics there. DarkZero versus M80, the other sort of marquee matchup, because again, you have these 3 teams here, and then you have 2 of those teams back again here. So until they prove themselves, I don't think it's wise to predict them or realistic to assume that they'll do well. But I mean, you have to imagine at least one of those 3 teams does something. They could all get crushed, but we'll see, especially considering none of them play each other just yet. So yeah, DarkZero and M80, I think M80 looks like the stronger roster on paper potentially, but DarkZero, I mean, they look really really good too. Achieved, maybe not as good as he used to be, but maybe he'll have a little bit of a resurgence now. Maybe things were just getting stale on TSM and it didn't really have so much to do with him. Canadian, maybe also not doing as well as he used to. He's been playing for a really really long time. Gaveni was okay at SI, not spectacular, not terrible, and I do think NJR and Pamzu have for a while now been sort of the shining lights on the team, pretty consistent, especially NJR, and maybe Pamzu has the more volatile role being the entry player, but I think he's usually done a good job of it. M80 having to implement more players, and I guess technically DarkZero has 2 new players, but one of them did play at SI, whereas M80, they just are bringing on Spoid and Iconic again, assuming Spoid actually plays and it's not a sub, and I don't know why that hasn't been announced yet. I'd be very surprised if they said something else, but anyways, I guess I'm gonna go with M80 here. I don't know. It seems like the pick. I would understand if you picked DarkZero here, but I'm going to go with M80. And then we have Space Station versus Mirage, and I mean, I won't hold you guys too much in suspense. Obviously, I'm going to pick Space Station. What did I just say back here? If they played one of these 3 teams, I'd go with them. And so we're going to have a little bit of the Rampy revenge potentially, and I guess this is Rampy and Yeti versus Fultz and Hot and Cold, because they were just on Space Station at SI and last stage, and now two of them are on Space Station, 2 of them are on Mirage, going head to head here. But I feel like Space Station probably has the better players overall, not that Mirage has bad players, and then also they have a little bit more of a predetermined system that we have seen work, again, the Astralis system, and then also sort of being combined potentially with the SSG system, which hasn't been that successful lately. But, you know, they did get top 3 in the last stage of NAL. They were close to making top 1 if they just beat TSM by a certain margin in that final game, but they didn't. Yeah, so I'm going with Space Station there. And then finally, we have Oxygen versus Parabellum. And yeah, that's going to be Laxing versus his old team. And I guess in sort of Skies, he was, I don't know, he played with Fox. It's a very different team than when Skies played with them. But at one point, he did play with them. And, you know, I'll probably be rooting for Parabellum in that one. And I might be rooting for him in a lot of the games, Parabellum, Beast Coast, Mirage, because they are the underdogs. It's fun to root for them. But in the picks, I'm going to have to go with Oxygen. So yeah, I think I just went with all the safe picks. And what are you going to do on day one? So many things have changed. So maybe you have to cling on to the things that haven't changed as much and hope that they weather the storm and whatnot. So that's what I'm going with. Match of the day, DarkZero versus M80. I don't know. Do you guys think it's that one or I think maybe it's this one. I think it might be Space Station versus Sonics. Things to note, you do have to consider DarkZero plays 2 games almost back-to-back. They only have 1 game between. Same thing for Space Station, whereas like Oxygen gets all day. I mean, is that a disadvantage that they have 7 hours between their first game and their second game starting? Like they have to play and then they have to wait a long time. Like these guys might still have the juices flowing, but it also might throw them off a little bit. It's only best of 1, so you know you're probably not getting too tuckered out from just playing 2 of them. Yeah, things to consider. But anyways, do leave me your predictions down below. Let me know what else you guys want to see. Somebody requested that I do the EU roster changes, and I thought I might not do that because it already started up, but I don't know if people still want it. Maybe I'll do that. Seems to be a pretty popular topic, and maybe I'll do one of these. Hopefully I'll do one of these tomorrow before the next play day, but it's tricky when the days are, you know, back to back. So anyways, that's going to do it for me. I will catch you guys in the next video.